QS. So this is the one I've been looking most forward to over the weeks. So we're joined by two great guests this morning who've got very interesting journeys into industry. So our first speaker is Kate Way, so 14 years with the Royal Marines Band Service and 9 months with Robertson's as a graduate QS. And then we'll hear from Will Draper, who was 8 years with the Royal Marines, a few years in industry, and he's now with McLaren for over a year now. So two fantastic speakers, and I'm interested to hear their journeys. So I'll pass over to our first speaker, Kate, and then we'll ask all questions at the end. Okay, and if I could ask, everyone to turn their screen off, please.
I also just ask, if you're not a speaker, just to turn your camera off, that would be great. Thank you. Over to you, Kate.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kate. I am based up in Scotland. Just talk a little bit about me. I was in the Royal Marines Band Service for 14 years, joined in 2005, and I left. So I started at Robertson in August 2019. You may wonder probably how I got from a musician as my day job to quantity surveyor. This is quite a massive tangent from where I was before. Reasons being, I was looking for a challenge. First degree I completed for music was in 2012. At that point, I'd completed 7 years in service. I looked at studying. I think after 6 months I was sort of getting itchy feet again. I was like, well, I need to sort of keep going. So I was looking for another course to do. Around that time, 2012, 2013, there was quite a massive recruitment drive for people to join construction, in particularly the quantity surveying profession. They'd seen a massive decline in people's uptake in university courses for that profession, due to the recession at the time. 2008, 2009 numbers really dropped significantly, and they've been, trying to make the gains back since. So I was sort of looking at the time in project management, and then I looked at quantity surveying because it was more involved in numbers. Part of my day job in the Royal Marines, I was also classed as a band treasurer, so I was looking after the accounting and trusted with monthly cost reports and that kind of thing. So it sort of transitioned from that aspect. I'll talk a little bit about the university course. So I was studying whilst I was still in my full-time role as Royal Marines musician. I'd completed the music degree as internally through the Royal Marines, and that was a distance learning course which took 5 years. And so on that aspect, I stayed on the distance learning format, and there were 4 sort of QS commercial courses available to me from the UK, basically. And I'm not saying Open University either, because the Open University weren't offering this course at the time. There was Reading University. There was a university in London somewhere. There was one probably in the northeast, probably Durham way. And the one I settled on was Heriot Watt University. And the reason for that was because I was looking to settle back in Edinburgh. Currently at the time I was based in Fareham in Hampshire. My partner was based in Faz Lane, so up sort of west of Glasgow sort of way, where the submarines are based. So we were doing a lot of distance sort of commuting kind of thing. We bought a house in 2013 in Fife, and fortunately I got moved back up to Scotland on the in September 2013. At that point I was looking at courses. Heriot Watt was one that I was looking at because number one, it's a RICS accredited degree. I initially applied for the masters. I ended up with I've just taken the graduate for the postgrad. The reason being, there was a lot of exams. I'd be completing a module once every semester. At the end, I would be completing an exam. So I had 12 weeks to consolidate any information, which was pretty new to me, and then I'd sit the exam at the university for free. kind of thing. If I had to sit it anywhere else in the UK, I'd be paying quite a lot of money. Also, Heriot-Watt provided the most information about the modules out of the 4 different universities that were offering this. So from trying to work out how the course would work before offering my money to them, I could see that I would have to complete 7 compulsory modules and 1 optional. The compulsory modules were contract and procurement, organisational management, construction law, business finance, quantity surveying, financial management, quantity surveying practice, building design and technology, and sustainability in the environment, in the built environment. So these generally, all this information was online, and you had like this specific portal that you go to, and you'd download all your presentations that you'd assume that your lecturers would give on a weekly basis, and you'd take that information, you'd follow leads and case studies, and that you had an online tutor with a supervisor above them. The online tutor was generally early, sort of like an early year doctorate student. I'd be honest, it depended which course you ended up on, which module you were doing. It was a little bit hit and miss. Some of them were really engaged with the modules and had a lot of time for you if you had any questions and that. They got back to you in a timely manner for any coursework that you did, etc. Some of them weren't. My most enjoyable one, I did the sustainability one. The course leader actually got involved with that particular module, and that was, you had to create a portfolio for a number of things that you asked to go away and research and provide before you could do the exam. So that kind of, that put a lot of pressure on you. And I think in the space of to provide the evidence for every little thing that they asked for in that sustainability module, I think I was in excess of 32,000 words in 10 weeks, which is absolutely, it's absolutely colossal. I had the time to do this because part of my job, I'd go away, I'd travel an average of 3 hours on a bus, unload to prepare for a concert kind of thing, rehearse and all that, and then I'd spend the time traveling, going back home every time. 3 hours was, I would say, the average. I'd travel probably 6 or 7 hours. I could travel to Belgium on a coach, going via Dover. So I'd be doing 12 hours from Scotland down to Dover, going across, so that's a 16, 17 hours day of traveling kind of thing. And I spent a lot of time on the bus studying for this, because otherwise, you had very different ways to entertain yourself on a coach. But people kept themselves to themselves, that the band traveled together. That's what we did. So that was just a little bit about me, and that's how I got around my study. But you can do it. I know the process has changed now at Heriot-Watt, and because I think people were given feedback saying, well, we've got 12 weeks to consolidate all this information and then do this exam, and there was loads and loads of information, and you just didn't feel that you were covering all of it. So I think the format's changed now. You register for a module to start, and then you can pick when you do the exam. So whether you do it at the end of that term, that's fine. If not, you continue, you do it the next semester, or when you feel it's right and you're prepared to go and do that exam. Exams were generally 2 to 3 hours long, depending on which module we're doing. So that's a little bit about the course. I got through it. I completed my 8 modules, and I've just applied for my postgraduate. I did have a go at my master's. The main issue I had with that was, ironically, writing it, but I haven't completed a music degree before. I found it very difficult to write scientifically. You write very 2 different kind of language requirements. I think musically you can elaborate kind of thing, where science it's sort of straight down the line, and trying to do that whilst traveling with the band, and I've put my notice in. So I was doing this at the same time that I put my notice in and preparing to leave the forces. It was just a little bit too much. So I took a step back, and now I've done nearly a year in gaining some experience. I'm realizing that I don't necessarily need the dissertation. So I've sort of taken a step back from that. But for me, I just got to the point where I was thinking, no, I don't need to write it. I don't need to put myself under that extra pressure, because I'm already in the job, and I've gained from that from that postgraduate, I've gained my career change. So also things that were, I think, were bothering me. I mean, it'd be great if I could go and study and go straight into the construction industry, but I have no experience in the construction industry. So as a musician kind of thing. So, you know, from that aspect, I was concerned from my CV point of view that I could walk into a construction industry. Here you go. I've done this. I've studied this. Yeah, okay, brilliant. But have you got any experience? At that point, I hadn't. So in 2014. So just as after I've started my postgraduate, I got in touch with a local consultancy. So consultancy of QSs who work for the client side of the industry. And I walked in, it was a Friday afternoon, I remember it was in December, and weather was awful. I hadn't had a particularly great day at work. And I walked in, spoke to the receptionist, and I was literally just waiting to leave my name and number and wait for somebody to contact me. Actually, one of the partners came out and took me into a meeting room and sat down with me, and it was very, very good to give me time and explain to him exactly where I'd come from and what I was after, you know, in terms of work experience, explaining that I had no kind of background, but I was looking to come and work in the industry. So for the next 2 years, I was using my leave period to go and do work experience. It was all unpaid. So I was shadowing a senior QS based on, so I'd go with them out to site visits and watch how they would create valuations for the client, from the client's perspective. I'd go into meetings, I'd sit in negotiations, I'd look at, I'm pretty certain I sat in a final account negotiation. I sat and looked at drawings. It was the first time I'd looked properly at a drawing, and you're looking at all the symbols and trying to understand what the drawing's trying to tell you. I was researching alternatives of build. I think one of them was too expensive, so I was asked to go away and look at the BICS, database, to try and work out how we can bring the costs down. So sort of like, I'm trying to think what it's called. Cost. I think Angela will know what I'm talking about. Sorry, I can't quite think of the word. And I was also looking at creating bills of quantities. So I had that kind of experience, and I was getting used to a different working pattern as well. My working pattern was very different to sitting in an office sort of 9 to 5 kind of thing. So I was sort of getting used to that, and I was, you know, I mean, I was trying to decide if I liked it or not. So I was quite lucky that they were local, so I could go home within 10 minutes kind of thing. I was home at a reasonable time, able to have tea at a reasonable time, and it was a very different way of life, but it was also good to get used to, because I was effectively working longer hours during the day, whereas I was generally sort of working half day to night kind of thing for most things. So with that and my CV as well, in fact, before I talk about my CV, I'll talk about sort of my final year. So September 2018, I put my notice in, and initially, because I had a good relationship, having gone back and forth with them for 2 years for work experience, I had a good relationship with them, and they were, at the time, they were looking to provide an offer of employment. Unfortunately, in November 2018, they couldn't offer me anything because of Brexit. They couldn't find a budget for me. So at that point, I started looking elsewhere. So I found Buildforce. They popped up a couple of times on my Facebook, and I was looking into them. And so I sent them an email, and I said roughly I knew where I wanted to be and that kind of thing, and had some kind of CV written up. And so Caroline very kindly passed me on to Angela, who reviewed my CV, and she actually questioned if I was ready to go into a consultancy, or if I'd considered the contractor's QS role. I hadn't. The only experience I'd had would have been from this consultancy. she read from my CV. Now, I had to make it look like I was ready to organise and do some management. So things I was doing outside of work, like I was running a cricket team, I ran the largest female cricket festival, sort of like a friendly tournament at the start of the season. I ran that as the biggest outdoor cricket festival in Scotland. So I had these kind of attributes to show that I could manage, I could organise, kind of thing, even though bearing in mind that as musician, as Marine kind of thing, I never got promotion. So in that sense, the reason that I studied was a fail-safe for any, you know, just in case I didn't get that promotion, and then I was just ready to sort of carry on and leave. So I had all these attributes as well. I'd spent a lot of time playing my cricket outside and organising the team, and you know, I showed that I could do that over 2 years. I had other voluntary experience as well. I did some telephone operating kind of things to help a non-for-profit organisation in Fareham while I was based in HMS Collingwood. So I had those attributes, and Angela was like saying, you're really, really, really busy. You know what I mean? We need something for you that's going to push you. You know, you're really motivated, kind of thing. So what she did was she's very kindly found me an opportunity to have an interview with Balfour Beatty, and so I had that as interview experience, which went well. It was interesting because it's the first time I had an interview in I would say 16 years, so you know, I found that went well. And then there was an application for Robertson, and I put that in sort of, I think it came in around December 2018. I had my interview after a telephone, in a brief initial sort of telephone interview, and I had the actual interview where they asked me to provide a brief presentation on certain attributes that I can bring from the military to Robertson, basically. How can I transfer these to the construction industry? So I gave sort of like 20 minutes. I didn't even bother doing a PowerPoint. I felt it was too much, so I just had a little sort of sheet with notes on it, kind of thing, and I just went through the different areas. For example, as part of Caroline's case study, she's asked me sort of to say what needs to be progressed, what I have brought from the military into the construction industry. I'd like to say that self-discipline. I had to keep myself to a high professional musical standard, attention to detail, high turnout of uniform, and always being inspected. We also had to look after all the kit that we were given. Integrity and finding solution for others. In later years, I was seen as a senior musician, so all the younger ones used to come to me, and I'd pass, you know, I'd think about it, pass it up the chain, and I was trusted with communicating their needs to the hierarchy. Resilience, putting up with unfavourable situations, one common one that, you know, everybody from the armed forces sort of puts up with, in particular, sort of like freezing cold, wet weather, claustrophobic conditions, working tiring hours, but having to perform still at the best of your ability. Time management, well, you wouldn't last long in the forces if you're constantly late. Adapting to the live situation, working as a team to overcome situations. One common one was fallen tail lift, so when we were moving all of our concert gear onto the wagon, so we can't cancel the show, we have to wait for another lorry to arrive. It's time based, so there was a lot of manual handling involved. Motivation, I've always wanted to constantly improve. I've always wanted to learn. That's sort of what I've wanted to do, and that's why I think the construction industry sort of attracted me as such, I would say. I've completed 2 distance learning degrees, and I've always listened to feedback from my superiors and taken on criticism and strived to improve from it. Independent working as well, that is quite common in this new job as well. Independent working, I was running the band treasury and handling money and that kind of thing, but I was trusted to do that even though I was in a junior sort of rank position, as it were. So that's generally me and that's my path. There's been a little bit of discussion. I've been asked also to discuss a little bit about what my sort of general week in the as a quantity surveyor is. It was a massive sort of like it was just completely different. It's a completely different world. Everything's changing all the time. I'll just sort of describe it. So like for my week one, I'd be preparing a cost validation report. So I'll be preparing it's a monthly numbers check to present to the directors, the monthly movements. Are we making a gain? Are we making a loss? You have to explain every single number and tell them, so you show that you've got a good insight to the project. Week two is a presentation of the CVR. So all that work from week one, you have at the beginning of week two, having knowledge and discussing, how, etc. Like I said, and then I'd probably go into a site valuation later that week, sort of walk around the site, taking notes of progress, compared to payment applications. Are the subbies asking for too much or too little? Week three, processing payment applications. I've got 30 subbies on site. Will might have a hell of a lot more than me, but for me, 30 subbies, that's quite a big thing to do, and you've got to analyze every single one of them. You can't just pay them, because you've got to justify that payment to your bosses. Why did you pay that? Well, I don't know. You know what I mean? You can't say that. And for week four, I'd be processing any outstanding payment applications, administrating any subcontract orders that need to go out, or tender invites, any other kind of admin that is involved as a QS. I'd like to mention that I joined as a graduate back in August 2019. I had the supervision of a senior QS. In December, for whatever reason, she resigned. So I was left on a 20 house site on my own from January till now, basically. So I've been left as project lead on this site, and I've been, to be honest, like I'm absolutely relishing the challenge. It's an absolutely massive ask, and I'm constantly busy. But this is the reason that I left the forces, because I needed to be pushed. I needed to be learning something every day. I needed to be challenged, and I'm learning all the time. If I have a problem, I do go and ask. So, you know what I mean? There's no issues with anybody from the armed forces. They do communicate their needs. And to be honest, I am getting really, really good praise sort of back from it, kind of thing. So two directors have noted that I've done really well when I presented my end of year a couple of months back. I've been in furlough for 6 weeks. I'm just jumping back in now. This is my third week out of furlough. And we are covering pre-COVID costs at the moment, so there's constant negotiation between us and the client, etc. And then we're now forecasting so like for post-COVID kind of thing. So what the extra costs and extra program and duration. Other aspects, just as a final thing, to take from sort of the armed forces side to the construction industry, there are many similarities. Every day is different. I've got a plan for a week, but my boss could then turn around to me and say, I needed this for yesterday, can you crack on with it, kind of thing. I've had a couple of those curveballs. Also, it is a challenging industry, especially the quantity surveyor role, but if that's what you're after, it's something that will really suit you. And there are many opportunities to progress, but again, it's down to you to grasp that with both hands and really go for it. You can't rely on anybody else to say, oh, it's not like the promotion process where you do your SJAR at the end of every year. Am I going to pick up? Am I not going to pick up? It's absolutely down to you to make sure that you are progressing with that. And I would say that to describe 3 words to describe the construction sector, I'd say it's challenging, it's rewarding, and it's opportunistic. And to describe an ex-military person to an employer in the construction industry, I would say that they are dedicated, they are resilient, and they are adaptable. So I think that's everything that I've wanted to cover. If anybody's got any questions, I'll answer them after the next talk. Thank you.
Kate, that was fantastic. Thank you very much for that. I've got my own questions here, but I'm sure that the audience are kind of biting at the bit to ask some more and to better understand the role. What we'll do in the meantime is we'll pass to Will. If he could turn his camera on and his mute off. Good morning, Will.
Morning.
Firstly, massive congratulations from the Belforce team. You've become a daddy just in the last day or so. I hope mummy and baby are doing well, and I hope you've had some sleep before baby comes home. Okay, I'll pass over to you, Will.
Thanks very much, Angela. Right, share. I've got a few slides. It's not going to be death by PowerPoint, but I've just got a few slides just to go through. Right, from the beginning. So my military career, I joined the Royal Engineers in 2005. Went on a fair few operations and tours, exercises, the usual scenario. 2013, there was a tranche of redundancies. I applied for it, didn't get it, so I decided to sign off. And I was in Afghan, I'm not Peric 18 at the time. 2014, I left the military and started my civilian journey. I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do. I just knew that I didn't want to be in the army anymore, and I wanted to pursue a career in construction. So 2014, I did an access to higher education course, which basically means because I didn't do very well at school at all, I didn't go on to do my A-levels. So in order to get into university, I had to do an access to HE course, which is a condensed, quite intense version of A-levels. And that enabled me to start university in 2015. I did an undergrad degree at the University of Brighton in project management for construction. So I did 2 years, and then 2017 I left and I did a placement year at Morgan Sindall down in Brighton. I did that for a year, then went back to uni to do my last year whilst working at Morgan Sindall. After a few months, I got approached from a smaller regional contractor and went to work with them as an assistant QS. I did 6 months there, and then that took me to where I am now with McLaren. 2019, so I graduated with a first class, which is a massive achievement for me because my school, I'm not an academic at all. My GCSEs tell that as well. So my current position, I'm an assistant QS for McLaren Construction. A little bit about McLaren. They turn over about 650 million a year. They're a limited company, so they're privately run and owned, which brings its own merits. They operate all over the UK, and they've actually got an office in Dubai as well. They do some work over there. They've done a few quite prestigious jobs over in Dubai. And within the UK, they're split into regions. So I work for McLaren South. They've got London, they've got major projects, and then they've got North and Midlands. So they cover the whole of the UK. They've done and are doing some quite prestigious projects. They've done a lot of work for Rolls-Royce, Amazon. They've done quite a lot of a big distribution centre in Tilbury. The last job I was on was Brighton College Sports and Science Building. That is, if you Google it after this, you'll see how impressive it is. It's the complete opposite to the school I went to. That was £38 million, and that was a brand new sports and science building with, it is pretty impressive. England rugby team train there in the summer, or will be. So the facilities are pretty amazing. The current project I'm working on is Edward Street Quarter. It's a mixed-use development smack bang in the middle of Brighton, and the backdrop there is hopefully what it will look like when it's finished, if it all goes to plan. I'm also working on my APC, which is Assessment of Professional Competency to become a member of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. So QSs go two ways if they want to become chartered. You either go MCIOB, which is Chartered Institution of Building, or MRICS. I decided on the latter. Roles and responsibilities, just picking up on what Kate said, she mentioned consultancy, client side and contractor side. So very generally speaking, there's two sides to being a QS, or two sort of parties you represent. You either represent the client as a consultancy, or a PQS they're known as, professional quantity surveyor, or you work contractor side. I work for the contractor. I work main contractor. You also have subcontractor QSs, but that sort of tends to fall into the contractor side. And without going into too much detail, because this isn't, I haven't got time. My roles and responsibilities, I manage the financial and contractual elements of construction projects. So you'll hear a lot of the time the word commercial. In this context, commercial isn't sort of offices or warehouses. Commercial within this context is the non-technical aspects. So as a QS, you don't go out and physically build stuff. You're managing the financial and the contractual elements, and it's not really until you get involved in the job you realise how much there is involved behind the scenes. And I'll use an operational tour as an analogy, because that's probably the best. When you see a tour or an exercise, it's not just the guys on the ground that's what it is. There's so much behind the scenes, and there's so much build up to getting a project, to agreeing numbers, to agreeing contractual terms, and then there's the commercial management of it all when you're on site. And that is, in very broadly speaking, the QS's role. The risks, and ensure your company is not exposed. So yeah, it's quite, I won't say complicated, because once you start getting your head around it, it's like anything, but there are a lot of things that you have to adhere to, legally, contractually. Kate was talking about payment applications, 30 subbies, that's a lot of subbies to pay. It's not just a case of just setting up a direct debit or anything with them. And yeah, it's a lot of things to do, and that is, the role of a QS is to, you're at the forefront of all that. And essentially, as a contractor's QS, you manage the cost, you ensure the project's profitable. Without a profit, any business it's not sustainable. So yeah, that's the QS's role and my role, very broadly speaking. Transferable skills from the military, and not that this isn't just in QS in general, in particular, it's more a construction industry as a whole. Attention to detail has been mentioned. You've got the devil is in the detail, and you get given a lot of information. And I think serving time in the military really, you can really zone in on the detail, because it's so important. You can't be missing things, especially as a QS, because that can make or break a job. Communication, negotiation skills. Communication is important because, like the military, you deal with so many different people and the different demographics of people. 1 minute you're talking to a client or an architect, next minute you're talking to the owner of a scaffolding company. No disrespect to scaffolders or trades, but their language is different, and you need to be able to to switch over to that, and act accordingly. Record keeping, and general admin. As a QS, you go onto a job and the job gets built. Chances are that you just sort of up and leave and go on to your next one. Very slim. You're there to pick up the pieces, and if you think of a project's been running for 2 years, your record keeping you need to be on it. There's a bit of a saying in construction: if it's not written down, it never happens. And yeah, you need to be really on it, and that, from the military, you get taught that, and your admin, general admin, is very important. Knowledge retention, you get thrown a lot of information very quickly, and you have to sort of take it and use it as a base, as a bit of a foundation for your knowledge, and you have to be able to retain that. And obviously, you don't have to be able to quote contract clauses, off the top of your head, but you do need to be able to retain a certain amount of knowledge. And I'm sure everyone will agree, in the military, when you're going through training or just in general, you get thrown facts and figures that you need to keep hold of. So yeah, that's a big thing. And working in multidisciplinary teams, you know, buildings don't get built by one person. There's so many different elements to it. Typically speaking, there's the operational side, the guys that actually build it, deal with the logistics, the health and safety, you know, the actual building of buildings. You've got design teams that design it, but then you've also got design managers who make sure that, you know, they actually this thing can be built. And then commercial, like I said before, they're the non-technical aspects, the numbers and the contracts. So yeah, they're the three key things to any project. You take one of them away and you know, it just fails. So I'll go for a couple of resettlement tips. I don't know what stages everyone's at with in their resettlement, but for the sake of it, courses. My experience, I basically lived at the Army Learning Centre, or the Early Learning Centre, people call it. And I just took any course I could, because my IT skills, to say they were bad would be a lie, because they were non-existent. They were really, really bad. So I did what was used to be called the European Computer Driving Licence. It's called ITQ now, I think, Information Technology Qualification. I did that, and it really got not up to speed completely, but it gave me a good foundation. Literacy and numeracy, you know, I didn't, as a Royal Engineer, didn't have to use any literacy and numeracy skills a lot. So I really had to go back into the sort of study mode and polish up. And that put me in good stead for going to college and then further on to university. And I think even if you don't pursue a further or higher education course, as a QS, there is an expectation that your literacy and numeracy skills are to a high standard. I mean, if you're writing letters to clients and contractors, and you know they're filled with spelling mistakes and stuff, it doesn't go down too well. And numeracy speaks for itself. You know, we work with numbers. We've got to be good with numbers. IT, I think if you're looking to go into a QS role, the first thing I would recommend you do is get good at Excel. Excel is, you know, I'm sure Kate would agree, and Angela, you use it every day, and you need to know your way around it. And I pretty much lived on YouTube. There's a channel called My Excel Online. Their tutorials are about 4 or 5 minutes each, and they are absolutely fantastic. And yeah, I really hammered that. Networking, LinkedIn is amazing. It is so, the fact that you can connect with company owners and decision makers at the click of a button is phenomenal, because, you know, gone are the days where you have to write letters to companies and stuff to introduce yourself. LinkedIn, use it to your advantage. It's amazing. But as well, there's also some really good learning literature and things you can really take from LinkedIn, articles and stuff. And yeah, just get if you're not on LinkedIn, I really do encourage you to get yourself a good profile set up and start connecting with people, because you never know where things lead. Attend events such as this, and ask advice and questions. People that have been through it, whether they're military leavers or not. Yeah, just become a sponge and just get, you know, ask advice. There's no such thing as a stupid question, just a stupid answer. So really, yeah, just ask advice. And the last thing on resettlement, put yourself first. And I've underlined and made your bold, because it really is your resettlement, and it should be your #1 priority. You leave them gates, you know, your troop commander's not going to be ringing you up making sure you're all right. It's your resettlement, and it is weird because you go from, you know, having to put, you know, your squadron, your troop or whatever you're in first, but when you're in resettlement, this is your time now. You know what I mean? You've done your bit. You've done your service. You know, make it your #1 priority. Job searching tips: research companies and their performance. the recent contract wins in their area of operation. If you know that you want to, your base is Scotland and you want to work for a house builder, it's pretty pointless trying to get a job in London doing commercial work. And LinkedIn is fantastic for researching companies. And a little tip I found is if you go on LinkedIn and type in a company, say McLaren, and then go onto the people, just take a bit of an average of the duration that they've worked there. Just 5 or 6 people, and you'll see how long they've been there, and you can get a feel for how long and what turnover of staff they've got. It's not the most accurate way of doing it, but it is a good indicator of how long people are there. I mean, my commercial director's been at McLaren for quite a while now, and he's been in every commercial position from trainee QS up to commercial director. So that speaks volumes about a company. Also, there's other websites such as BC Live. That's like a live monitoring of contract wins. So if you see, planning permission going in for a big warehouse in your town, you can go onto BC Live, click on, say East Sussex, where I live, and then it won't tell you the exact project, but it gives you can get a real good indicator of, say, McLaren have just won a £30 million warehouse project in East Sussex. Chances are it's that one. So that's quite good, and you keep abreast of what's going on in the industry as well. Marketing yourself, LinkedIn profile. If you haven't got one, that's probably the first thing after this is to do. And if you need a hand with it, just give me a shout, or anyone at Build Force, because I'm more than happy to help. And a well-structured and relevant CV. It's such a daunting thing doing a CV. For me, it was anyway. It was horrendous, because you sort of look at a blank bit of paper and think, what can I offer? But once you start getting down to it, like Kate was saying, there is a hell of a lot you can offer. And well structured. You've got to remember, you're sending CVs to very busy people. The last thing you want to do is send 2 sides of A4 with just paragraph after paragraph. They probably won't read it. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn after, I'm more than happy to send you over my CV. I'm not saying I'm an expert in it, but I've got some good feedback on my presentation of the CV. It's broken down quite nicely, and it just gives people snippets of information that you can then talk about in interviews and stuff. Application, not all jobs are advertised. Going back to LinkedIn again, I probably sound like I work for them, but you connect straight to the source and you can network. You can see a job advertised, a contract is advertised, and you can go straight to the source. Click on commercial director at McLaren, Bosch, connect with him, and send him messages. Send him a message, and people might think you're a bit necky, but then people might think fair play to you. I mean, I certainly would. Another little bit of advice: email addresses. I think it's a bit of a what salespeople do. It's not rocket science to figure out someone's email address, because the chances are, for example, mine's will.draper@mclarengroup.com. The chances are you find someone's name, I don't know, Dave Jones, it's going to be dave.jones@McLaren Group. So you can then send emails to people, whether that's the done thing or not, I don't know, but I certainly do. And it worked for me. And yeah, just get your CV over to people, a nice introductory email to sort of tell them where you are and what you do. And yeah, like I say, people might think you're necky, people might think, fair play. I mean, like I say, I certainly would. Fair play, using your initiative. And lastly, manage your expectations. More relevant to the QS role, the chances of you leaving the army, and I don't want this to sound bad, but the chances of you leaving the army, navy or air force and then going into a company and being on the same money and the same responsibility are pretty slim. However, you go in as a trainee QS, you will progress very quickly. Sort of touch on what Kay said. There's no ceiling in the industry. There's no you can't do this because you're only an assistant. If you show that you're capable of doing it and you relish the challenge, you will be given the responsibility, and that's how you learn, how you progress. I did my undergrad dissertation, and it was focusing on ex-military going into the construction industry, and it's amazing how quickly you can progress in the industry. Stick your head above the parapet and take on roles and take on jobs, and don't always think that I've got to do some mundane job. I remember when I was at Morgan Sindall, I got given a really, really mundane job, but I did it, and I did it well, and that shows that you're keen and that the challenges you get given you'll take, and that is pretty much military people in a nutshell, I think, anyway. Yeah, and that's the end of the slides, but I just want to sort of just summarise, really. A lot of people, ex-military people, go into the construction industry, and a lot of them go into health and safety and the operational side of stuff, so logistics management and site management. I've not met a single ex-military QS apart from Kate today, and it surprises me a little bit because there is a lot of things that you can take from the military into being a quantity surveyor, and it is a bit of a minefield because there's so many different ways of getting into it. My journey into being where I am now is slightly different to Kate's. So, like I said, I left school with very little qualifications, joined the military, and then I went to university later on. I was full-time for 2 years, then I did a placement year, and then went back to do my final year. Don't be discouraged by a full-time university course. They're not full-time in the sense that you go there 8 to 5. Apologies for the barking in the background, the dog's going mad. That you're more than capable of doing a full-time course and working full-time, in my opinion, whether it's distance learning or on campus. Speaking from experience, the University of Brighton were fantastic in terms of support, and you'll find that doing a construction related degree, be it QSing, construction management, architectural technician, it's very vocational. So the chances that you do a construction degree and then work in the industry, it's different than doing, say, an English language degree where you don't really know what you're going to do after. So the lecturers are really, really supportive, I found anyway. And it was a good experience. Whether you have to do a degree, I'm not entirely sure. But for me, it really did help. And it opened up a lot of windows and opportunities. I'm going to leave it there, but I'm sure you've got a lot of questions, and I'm more than happy to answer them. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn after, yeah, I'm more than happy. Thanks very much for listening. Cheers.
Well, brilliant. Thank you very much. No, we appreciate that. A few questions have come in, and I've got a couple of my own, so we'll crack on with those. Kate, I don't know if you want to put your camera on and your mute off. So the first question's come in from Kay Stevenson. So she's a building surveyor and is struggling to get work experience there. So we can Buildforce will look to support her. But just on the general subject of work experience, I know, Kate, you said that you walked into local practice. What advice would you both give to people listening?
Will, do you want to go first?
You can go first, Kate.
Okay.
I need to give my vocal cords a break.
Okay, it's about, I think it's funny being inside the fence in the armed forces. You don't feel, and I don't know if it was just sort of being in the branch that I was in, they told you at some point, they were like, oh, there's nothing good for you out there, the grass isn't greener, that kind of thing. We're all, well, I say now we're all civilians kind of thing, you know what I mean? We don't bite. It's just having, I can't really, from my experience, I walked in and I got back a lot more than I thought I was going to get that day. I think if you're willing and you're showing that you're asking for that kind of work experience, I think you know what I mean? That company will take an interest because they're always looking for people. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what background they're in. I think I don't know. Just going around locally, I know it's very difficult. Or have a look online. It's very difficult. They do have internships. They do offer them over the summer months and that kind of thing. You see a few things that pop up either on LinkedIn or wherever. So I think that's also another option. But if you want something that was to fit around your leave or anything like that you've got kind of thing, as I did whilst I was still in, I don't know if Kay is still in or not, but you know, just engaging with these companies or emailing them or just asking them, you will get a response back.
Okay, and Will, any advice?
Yeah, I think you will be surprised how helpful people are in the construction industry. There is a genuine passion for the industry, and the people that work in it are more than helpful. And there's an image of the industry that it really isn't an honest reflection, because people are willing to help, and the reason why they're willing to help is because they need to. They haven't got a choice, because when I did my dissertation, I did quite a lot of research, and the skills shortage is quite scary actually. And I think the average age of a QS in the construction industries, I think it's like 52 or 55, and that's quite, you know, no disrespect, but that's quite old considering they're going to be out of the industry in 10 years time or less, because all QSs are minted. That's a joke. They'll be out of the industry, so they need to get the next sort of generation coming in, and you'll find a lot of people that join the industry aren't not necessarily school leavers, but they're people that are transferring industries, because you can bring a hell of a lot to the industry, and it's almost like a fresh set of eyes on stuff, and you question things and you say, well, why are you doing that? And the response you get is, well, we've always done it like that. And people can't really actually answer you. So when you're asking questions like that, it actually shakes things up. And to be able to go back onto the work experience thing, just put yourself out there, connect with loads of people, and you will be surprised. And if you're still serving, you're in a very unique position, because until you're actually working in the industry, you don't realise how hard it is for people to recruit, and how expensive it is in both terms of resource and money. So if I was a business owner and someone was saying to me, I'm still getting paid from a company or from an organisation, I want to do this job, can I come and do some work experience for 2 weeks? I'd be like, yeah, please. Show a bit of willing and show enthusiasm, recruitment process is done. Mm-hmm. From a company owner, you know, it's done. Yeah, you're brilliant. I want you to work for me. There you go. Hopefully it'll be as successful as that. But yeah, just put yourself out there and just be willing. Yeah, that's my advice.
Okay, a question that I'm always asked as a QS is, are you good at maths? How would you answer that?
Yeah, it's basic. It's basic accounting. You've got to keep track of the job. I would say I prefer maths to English kind of thing, but I'm sort of strong on both. But yeah, I have to be. Yeah, maths is an essential, really.
Okay,
my answer is slightly different. No, but I'm very good at Excel. No, you've got to have an understanding of numbers. Do you have to be a mathematician or work out, you know, crazy equations? Not at all. Yeah, you've got to have a good understanding. I mean, my highest mathematical qualification is a grade C GCSE, which I had to redo in 2014. So, yeah, I wouldn't say you've got to be amazing, but yeah, you've got to be good with numbers.
Okay. Right, a question's come in from Charles. He's asking, Will, how did you manage to study and have a placement whilst being in the army?
Sorry, I wasn't serving while I was at uni or doing a placement. So I left, then I went to college, then uni. So I was a civilian at the time, but working and studying is more than doable. Yeah, you just got to manage your time right, and you'll find that there's an old saying, you always give the busiest person in the office the job to do, because they'll get it done, because you do find time. If you get given coursework to do and you've got nothing else going on, you'll sit on it till it's due in 3 days. But if you're working full time, you've got to make sure you do it. So yeah, it's definitely doable, definitely, especially.
Sorry. Just a sub question to that. How did you come across McLaren? How did you come to secure that role?
I saw it online. I knew that there was a recruiter advertising for the role, and I connected with the recruitment director for McLaren and said, you need an assistant QS in Brighton. I'm an assistant QS and I'm in Brighton. Here's my CV. Can we, see what you think? And then he said, the commercial manager wants to interview you. And I went for an interview and had a second interview with a senior QS and landed the job. But it was online, yeah.
Okay, no, good. And just a further question to that. Is McLaren Construction and McLaren the car maker related?
No.
Do you get any discounts?
Everyone says that. But when people ask me who do I work for, I say McLaren, and they go, oh, wow. And I go, oh, no, not the car company, construction. They sort of go, oh, great. No, they're not related at all.
Not related. And Kate, in terms of industry training and development that you've had since you've been over in construction, what does that look like? What courses have you done?
I'll be honest, I've not done very many. I'm looking to enroll on my APC as well. In terms of what I've done since I've arrived, I've been trained on a new payment system. But I think what I got from my senior QS, she sort of showed me the ropes. Sort of like, I'd sort of say, ironically, it's sort of like my 16 weeks basic training. Here you go. And then January, my training wheels were just sort of torn off and I just cracked on with it. In terms of training and courses, I've not really touched anything so far. I'm just learning the format and just learning the job as I go, I guess. But it was funny actually, because this time last week, I was using a particular spreadsheet to put my costs together, and my new manager goes to me, "Oh, nobody shown you how to use that spreadsheet?" And I was like, no, I've not been shown very much, kind of thing. So I think, right, I need to work out what support kind of thing. So they actually hadn't realised, because I've been doing really, really good job, that I'd actually, as a graduate, I hadn't actually had much support. I'm just thinking of why I signed up as a graduate. There was a graduate scheme that I was supposed to start in September last year, but it's been put back a year. And that was generally to take all the other graduates that had joined Robertson, and what they were saying was it was focusing on soft skills. So talking to people, learning, going from university and learning how to join the professional world as such. And already my boss was saying, you've got no issues with that as such. So they're already trying to decide whether I need to actually sit through it.
Right. Okay. And any training that you've taken, Will?
Yes, quite a lot. I'm doing my APC, so you've got to hit a certain amount of CPD hours, which is continuous professional development. But aside from that, there's a hell of a lot of studying to do. You write up a sort of a diary, if you like, of competencies in each sort of QS discipline. And then there's certain things that you don't experience in your day job. For example, dispute resolution. I'm not in dispute with anyone, thankfully, at the moment, so I can't write about that. So there's a lot of reading that I have to do. Yeah, and courses with McLaren I've done. Well, I did my site manager's safety training course. That was actually with Morgan Sindel. That was a 5-day health and safety course. As a QS, you probably don't have to do an SMSTS. Most companies have a minimum of a triple STS, which is a 3-day course. There's so many. It's like the army. There's so many acronyms and things for everything. It's crazy. I've done a sustainability 1-day course, which was really good, and that was looking at the roles of a contractor in the the environment, in terms of physical environment and the social environment as well. What else have I done? And there's just lots of informal training. Like Kate said, you'll be working on something and you'll ask someone a question and you think it's going to be a 5-minute answer. You sit down, bless you. You sit down and you're there for 2 hours, and it's great because it's on the job training and there's no training like it. But yeah, a lot of reading. If you go onto the RICS website, there's so much literature on there to read up on. It's amazing. Yeah, so it's my training.
Okay, and just to pick up on a term that you both used there, the APC. So as a surveyor, if you wanted to go on and be chartered, so if you wanted to be a member of the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, you go through an assessment process. So the APC is your assessment of professional competency, and essentially they manage and monitor you over an 18-2-year process to ensure that you've got the relevant skills, you're professionally competent, and you're aware of a code of conduct to govern how you practice as a surveyor, and you don't ever bring the profession into disrepute in any way. So just in case anybody wasn't clear what that term meant. So in terms of the future then, so do you think you'll still be knee deep in valuations and variations and cost reports and internal reporting, or have you got visions of a senior role in mind?
Yeah, I'd certainly like to go up the way, definitely. Yes, but it's just seeing how it pans out, I think. My next, like I said, my next aim specifically is the RICS APC, and then we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah, I'm in a fortunate position, the project I'm on, we're sort of just coming out of the ground now. To be able to sit on that job from start to finish would be firstly quite rare for a QS, and secondly it'd be a good experience for me. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to cutting my teeth on that job. For now, my next step is to become QS, get rid of that assistant before, and then 5 years time looking to be a senior QS, but I'd still very much like to be project level. At the moment, I've got no ambition to become commercial manager as such, because I still like the nitty gritty of the site stuff. But that could well change. But yeah, it's learning on site at the moment is key before I start. Learn to walk before I can run is the term I use.
I think that's a great response from both of you. The career's so incredibly consuming and fulfilling and enjoyable. Every day is different. It is completely non-stop from the minute you get up in the morning until you eventually get in at night. It's so hard to articulate how phenomenal the role is. I've absolutely loved my job and my career, and I would do it all over again in a heartbeat. And I think your point, Will, in terms of as you progress through your career, you do move one step back from the site with every promotion you get, to the point where I was speaking to Kate the other week and I was almost envious of just everything that she was going through, the cost reports and the valuations, and being knee deep in it and working all hours. And that's where I got that fulfillment and that sense of purpose and the value I brought to the company. And you miss it when you're not doing it. So I wish you all the best of futures, but stay safe during this period as well before we get back to site. Just in summary then, in terms of the advice that we've been given, so Kate, a strong theme around self-study. So whether it's travelling, she used her time as effectively as she possibly could. Keep an open mind in terms of what would interest you. I think probably it took her by surprise that sustainability really kind of drew her in. You just don't know how good it is until you get there, so just stay open-minded. Again, that proactive approach of walking into a local practice for work experience. The work experience didn't just bring Kate closer to the role itself. It had other value for her in terms of getting back into a routine, working hours, and I think it's probably, there's no end, and it's quite layered in terms of everything work experience offers. The interview that Kate had, whether it was mock or otherwise, just really, really good experience for her, where she hadn't had an interview in such a long period of time. And she's really pushed herself. I think she said, just really go for it, which I thought was just a fantastic way to sum up just the advice that she would give our audience listening. With Will, again, a phenomenal achievement in terms of, regardless of school achievements, he went on to get a first-class degree. So sometimes you just need to, with a little bit of maturity and a little bit of life experience, you can actually go back and apply yourself and do incredibly well. And I've seen that time and time again. Improve yourself, whether it was numeracy, literacy, or IT skills. Network yourself, use LinkedIn, make it your new best friends, and put yourself first. So your resettlement is your priority. And I think probably the message from both Kate and Will was, there's people there to help. They're both there to advise and help, and we can connect you if you want us to. But again, Build Force are here to work with you through each step of your transition into that role and beyond, because I think probably, as Will and Kate have demonstrated, your journey takes turns, your career comes with challenges, and I think sometimes just that ongoing support is very much needed. So listen, thank you very much for listening. I have absolutely personally loved today's session, so thank you to both our speakers, and I'll pass back to Caroline if she's there.
Yeah,
thanks, Angela.
I'm here. So I'd just like to echo that. Thanks, guys. That was fantastic. Kate, we need to get you on board as a mentor as well. I've put that on my list. So thanks for listening, guys. I hope you found it really useful. Any connections you want with these guys, please get in touch, or do it via LinkedIn, or I can support you. And again, I've made a note to get in touch with Kate Stevenson, who I'm already in touch with, to have another chat about the BS route. But yeah, just users, we're here to support you as much or as little as you want. If you're not registered with us, then get in touch and get registered. And we have a next one in 2 weeks' time, which you will be focusing on project management. So have a good week. Stay safe, everyone, and thanks, and see you all soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.